And welcome to a very special on-location bookmark. I'm Doug Keck. Our special guest and author is Father Brian Kolodiejchuk, and the book is A Call to Mercy, Hearts to Love, Hands to Serve. It's all about Mother Teresa. Thank you so much, Father Brian, stopping by here. As people can see, we're actually on the site of the Knights of Columbus Convention back in the beginning of August. This is airing now right before Mother Teresa's actual canonization. Now, you're special because you're also the postulator for the cause of Mother Teresa. So what does it mean to be a postulator? How much work did you have to do?
Well, it was quite a bit of work because Mother Teresa is a major figure in the church, and there was just lots of information, a lot of witnesses to be heard, a lot of documents to collect, and so that was the first part was a lot of work of just gathering information.
Now, you were actually in her order, right?
Correct.
Okay, and how many priests are there?
There's 37 ordained, 15 studying, junior profess, studying theology, and then the rest, another 30 in formation.
Where are you originally from?
Winnipeg, Canada.
Okay. So we're in Canada here, so
and
it's your home.
And I studied 3 years of university here at St. Michael's.
Okay, so you feel quite comfortable.
I'm very feel at home.
How did you get tied up with Mother Teresa?
Well, my sister joined first, and she was in Rome becoming a novice. So my parents and I left from Winnipeg, and we went to Rome, and Mother Teresa happened to be there. And she was the beginning of the group of contemplative brothers at that time. And so we went to the opening Mass, and Mother pinned a cross on one priest and 5 Italian men, and so after the Mass at the end we were saying goodbye. My parents said goodbye, I said goodbye to Mother, and then she said, "Oh, I would like to pin a cross on you too."
Really?
And it was like, I was only 21, and it was like...
Had you been thinking of the priesthood at all?
I was with the Redemptress, the Ukrainian Rite Redemptress, and I just left the postulancy. I finished philosophy here in Toronto, and so I was like a free agent.
Okay.
And so Mother just... When we say later, it was like she went fishing.
Real gin?
Yeah.
Now, this particular book is said it's published to coincide with Pope Francis' Year of Mercy, and the canonization of Mother Teresa. And this book features unpublished material by Mother Teresa and also testimonies of other people. Where did you gather this unpublished material from?
Okay, this is all from what we gather the Mother's writings, we say. Her letters to her general letters to the sisters, private correspondence, instructions, sometimes public talks that she had made. So that's the words part, and then the example, because we wanted to say, okay, this is what Mother said, but here's how she lived these 14 works of mercy. So that's direct from the testimony that we had collected during that first part.
Now, you worked with her for 20 years, right? Did you have any doubt in your mind that you were working with someone who was a saint?
To be honest, not really. No, I didn't. No, I think it was that's why even we were able to begin the cause earlier than the 5 years, because her reputation of holiness was so solid and widespread that that's why we began before the 5 years.
It's interesting because we're talking about Mother Teresa, and here we are in the Year of Mercy. One might think, it wasn't too long ago we had basically World Youth Day in Poland. You think of Sister Faustina and Divine Mercy as being the mercy saint. But here you talk about in the book about Mother Teresa as the mercy saint.
Well, in a sense of the work that she did, the work that the sisters and we do, is all of the material or corporal works of mercy and the spiritual works of mercy. And I think also, like Pope Francis, it was interesting just researching this, was how much Mother used that word tender love, compassion, and then how much Pope Francis uses that word tender too. So they're really on the very much saying a strong connection.
Now, you say here, it is frequently said that actions speak louder than words. This is a book primarily about Mother Teresa's actions. Through her own words and through the lens of direct witnesses, she emerges, as you said, as an icon of tender and merciful love. Now, did Mother Teresa have writings like the other great saints did, or where are these writings from? Are they from letters? Where did you cull them from?
Yeah, Mother Teresa she wasn't she's not a systematic thinker, writer, so it's mostly the general letters, the instructions. Sisters would keep notes, private letters, so mostly it's letters, I would say.
Well, you say here in the beginning of the introduction, you say, interesting, mercy is not a word that Mother Teresa employed frequently in her spoken or written word. She understood herself to be someone in constant need of God's mercy, also specifically as a weak and sinful human being who depended entirely on God's love.
Right. It was very interesting when we were doing this. Exactly, it was like, where's mercy? And but she would use the other words. She would say often, we are called to be God's love, His presence, His compassion, tender love. So those were the words, and so those are more of the words that she used. Or she would put mercy in like a number of those words, and mercy would be there. But she didn't have a strong focus on mercy as a main element or a main word for her.
Right. It says, in fact, Jesus himself had told her when inviting her to found the Missionaries of Charity, I kind of forgot about this, Drickle, you are, I know, the most incapable person, weak, sinful, but just because you are that, I want you to use you for my glory. Reminds me, I'd say, Mother Angelica too, where our Lord always seems to take those least likely and put them to prove it's really His work, right?
She would say, go choose another Loretto sister. And no, Jesus says, no, but I want you. So she really had a sense, she would say, no, God uses nothingness to show His greatness. So she really had a sense, really, of being just unworthy or very simple. Although I think she chose to be simple in her expression because she was very gifted as a teacher, organizer. She could sing, she could write poetry, she could play the musical instrument. So she chose to be simple. And I think that's part of why we were all surprised when Come Be My Light came out, and we just saw the profundity. We knew she was holy, she radiated holiness, but I think from those letters especially, we really radiated, or we found out the source, or what kind of holiness that was.
You say she considered the poor just like herself to be in need of God's love and compassion, of God's care and tenderness. She easily identified with every other human being. Is it because of that, that's why she was able to relate so directly with the poorest of the poor?
Yeah. No, she really had, my brother, my sister. So she really had a sense of identity with the people, and the most simple people. And in fact, so she had this, whether it was the president, the prime minister, the queen, or the poor person in the night shelter, it was both Jesus at this time, right, this person is Jesus for me now, and at the same time, this is my brother, my sister, a human being, worthy of attention, my love, and the dignity of being a human person.
Right. You also mentioned about the fact that she would see people as their brother and sister. Now, she got that in some ways from her mother, right?
Well, no, her mother was, I think, the strongest human influence on her was her own mother. And her mother was also a strong character, as Mother Teresa was. But she also had, even when she was a young girl, she would see the example of her mother, who would bring in the poor from the street, give them to eat, and then the kids would ask, well, who are these people? And Mother's mother would say, oh, they're our family.
So her secret in some ways is what I guess we're trying to get across in the book as well, is that for all of us to see that we have to identify ourselves as one of the poor.
Correct.
And if we do that and realize that, it makes it a lot easier for us to accept our own life and then relate to others.
Really. And, there's a sense, there's Jean Vanier, for example, says the same thing. The more visibly poor, whether it's material poverty, the handicap, they're like a sacrament to reflect to us back our own poverty that we need to realize. And in that sense, we're the same. The externals are different, but there's that deeper level where we are really identified with everyone else.
She said, I must give to others not only something that is my own, but my very self. I must be personally present in my gift. And you say Mother Teresa epitomizes this act of giving. Yeah. And I think of Pope John Paul II, that whole self-donation idea, right?
Love the gift that John Paul spoke of. Right. And that's why people sensed when she would be in the home for the dying or just meeting anyone, they really sensed that at this moment I was the only person in the world for Mother Teresa. So she had this real attention to the person and empathy and its tenderness, even like the way sometimes she would touch the hand. It was really both human, very human, and supernatural at the same time.
A way of making people feel important by her attention.
Yeah.
No, many times people who had no other reason to ever feel important were cared for.
Right. So there's one example in here of the man who didn't want to go to confession, and then the priest said, "Well, if Mother Teresa came here and asked you, would you do it?" Right. And then he said, "Yeah." I mean, thinking about, Mother Teresa's coming to me, right. And then she comes, then they have to do it. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of little examples in here where you would think, now some big person, famous person wouldn't be bothered about some little insignificant, humanly speaking person, and yet she had this attention to to the regular guy, just do these little things that no one's going to see, not for show, and just for...
Right. In fact, you have an entry in their diary from December 21st, 48, where it talks about the idea of you mother, you big mother has become one of us, and that and the people connection with her. This was the other part that you were alluding to earlier. Astonishingly, for those nearly 50 years she identified complete with the poor, she served by her own experience of being seemingly unwanted and unloved by God in a mystical way.
Right. So that's referring back to the letters in Come Be My Light. And so she could empathize so much with, she would say, the greatest poverty in the world today is to be unloved, unwanted, uncared for, and that's what she was experiencing with Jesus. So she had this great empathy with that really interior suffering for many people, being unloved and unwanted.
Right. So whose idea was it to put this book together and the actual structure that was followed?
Well, it was my idea with the sisters in the apostolation office, and so we together chose. Actually, the draft had much more, but we had to cut some of the stuff out. But we want to do something on mercy, and I quote there Pope Francis, reminding us of the 7 and 7 to 14 works of mercy. So I think...
right. And sometimes people seem to put an accent on the corporal works and forget the spiritual side, so, which they have to go together. They can't just be spiritual without corporal. They have to go together, right?
Together, right.
Right, and that's the secret to what she was talking about. A Call to Mercy shows Mother Teresa's daily living, her doing ordinary things with extraordinary love. We hear that expression before. From the unique perspective of those closest to her, testimony given by witnesses as Mother Teresa's process of canonization was put together, says, I thought this was interesting. You said, for the sake of authenticity, the anecdotes and the stories recounted are given with minimum editing, even though it is evident the English is not the first languages of some of the witnesses.
Have a sense of let the person speak directly as possible, and get the feel of what the person really said.
Now, you have stories, first-hand accounts, also some are secondary accounts, people who were told other things. Then you have a short section of questions for reflection. Was that your idea? Was that the publisher's idea?
No,
Did the sisters think that?
Our idea to say you've read Mother's words, you've seen her example. Just a first help at least to apply what you've read to your own life. And again, always emphasizing those little things, the ordinary things. That's what Mother kept emphasizing. Small things, great love.
You say here in the very beginning, Call to Mercy, Mother Teresa is known for setting up great programs that resolve world hunger. But she says there's another type of hunger that Mother Teresa began to speak of, especially after opening her houses in the West. Right. She often repeated that people are not only hungry for bread, but hungry for love.
Right. No, that's why she really had the sense, because of her own experience, of those who are unloved, unwanted, uncared for. She would refer to, say, old people in the homes where they're lonely. She said, I went one place and they were all looking at the door waiting for someone. Or there's another little anecdote here where, just old people just want to be heard. You just go, and it's already an act of charity just to go and listen.
She said, people are hungry for God, she used to say. This reality of spiritual hunger, which she experienced deeply and encountered wherever she went, she addressed in a simple and timely manner. She wanted to be God's love, His compassion, His presence, wherever she went, so that people looking at her might come to know God whom she wished to reflect.
Right. There was everything, and it's in here too. I mean, she really lived concretely in reference to Jesus. Everything was related to Jesus, how to love Him. What is He asking of me? What is He giving me? Give what He takes, take what He gives with a big smile. Everything really was very really and concretely related to Jesus.
In the section under Love to be true has to hurt, this was something interesting. We have another word, free. I cannot charge anything for the work I do. And this is what I thought was, people criticize us and say ugly things because of this word free. Why would they have a problem with that?
Well, because, our fourth vow is wholehearted and free service to the poorest of the poor. And it's a legitimate opinion. You can say, well, we should ask them to pay something so that they have a sense they're participating. But Mother's sense was that at least there's one congregation that's spoiling the poor, because there's many spoiling the rich. And that was the idea.
Okay.
So,
unfortunately, it's probably true. We have to all go to confession over that. Together, we can do something beautiful for God. Love is for today. Programs are for the future.
Right. The sense was our vocation, our MC vocation, is effective and immediate help. It's for others to work on the social structures, the programs, but it's today who's there on the street needing something to eat, who needs a place to sleep, not in some future point where maybe that won't be necessary, but today, that's Jesus suffering today.
In some way, it's inside the church, all orders, different people. We all have different vocations and different focuses. They don't all have to be the same.
Exactly. Mother wasn't against all those other things, but her call was very specific.
What she was doing.
Right.
She said, I never get mixed up with what government should or should not do. Instead of spending time on those questions, I say, let me do now. Tomorrow may never come. Our people may be dead by tomorrow.
Right. And you see all these examples where it was like, if she can do it today, she would go do it today. I remember saying they had to do something. Well, maybe Mother, you're tired today. Maybe we can go tomorrow. No, there's time. We're going today.
Right. I remember elsewhere in the book, I think she was recounting being in London and talking about seeing some people standing against a wall who were trying to get heat, and some other street people who were saying they had been turned away because they weren't willing to work for the food. And she said, I hope it wasn't my sisters.
Right.
That did that, right?
Right.
So that's powerful. Right. I'm able to recognize hungry people in my family, community, parish, neighborhood, city, and find a way to offer some relief of that hunger. Now, when you say in her family, do you think she's just talking about a spiritual sense?
She would say often in a public space, you don't have to come to Calcutta to find the poor. The poor are all around you, and maybe in your own family. And so she said, like, now, always this emphasis on now. Who in my family now? Maybe it's my husband, my child, a relative, cousin, uncle, whoever it is, who needs even this small gesture, a smile. Phone them up and say, how are you doing? Just these little small things, she'd say, grab the chance, or really look for these opportunities, because they're all around us, and we just have to pay attention. And these little occasions are for doing a small thing, but with extraordinary love, hopefully.
Really focus in the Clothe the Naked, talking about restoring to them their dignity as sons and daughters of God. That whole idea of showing people, not only feeding them, but showing them respect and the dignity that is they're entitled to as a child of God. Right.
So that's both the human level and the supernatural. That person is Jesus, but also my brother, my sister, with their human dignity, and I'm going to show that in the immediate as I can today.
Under nakedness is the loss of that human dignity. It says, the unwanted, the unloved, the uncared for, the forgotten, the lonely. This is much greater poverty.
Well, because she would say it was relatively easy. I give, if someone's hungry, I give them something to eat, the hunger is gone. But it's much more difficult to meet that interior, that spiritual poverty. And in one place she would say, I need not just to meet that kind of spiritual need, prayer, sacrifice, and then the tenderness and compassion. So there's that human contact, and again that supernatural thing, but the prayer and sacrifice also is part of my service of the spiritual poverty.
Chapter 4, Shelter the Homeless, she talks about the idea of dealing with a feeling of being rejected, abandoned, let down, of not belonging everywhere, and talking about this understanding of poverty, this deep understanding of quote-unquote homelessness came also from her deep mystical experience. Was it a particular experience or just some ongoing situation?
Overall experience, those many years of what she called the darkness, made her very sympathetic to those who were also, some sense, feeling unloved, unwanted, lonely. So she had people would come because it was Mother Teresa. I want to talk. Maybe she'll give me a word of comfort. So she had, wherever she traveled, even Calcutta, people would come after Mass. She would sit with the people, and they would, God knows what horror stories she heard, and she was able to, touch that deeper level because she was, from her own depth to meet the depth where the other person was. So.
Okay. Later in the book, you talk about we must realize our faults, she says, and correct ourselves. Why did I become like this? Because I am proud. Now, was that a challenge she herself dealt with every day for herself?
I think so. There's one, it's not in here, but I think it's in Come Be My Light, where a sister was reporting to the Jesuit priest back home, and she said, Mother Teresa is very humble. It cost her a lot to get to that, because she was a strong character, and so it was, she wasn't born, as we say, the saints aren't born saints.
Right.
So the witness of the sister who knew her in Loretto still said it cost her a lot to get to that humility.
Now she was, I gauged, she was sleeping very short number of hours, maybe 5 hours a night. Where did her power come from? Was it a spiritual energy, a combination of her own,
For sure,
will and drive?
I don't think that humanly you could have kept her schedule, because, and one of the concerns at the beginning of Father Menexem was in whether this is an authentic call was her poor health. And then when you hear that, and then you think of how she lived all those years, no rest during the day, just several hours of sleep. It was, again, her strong determination, her strong character, but even more so is grace, because I don't think anyone could do it.
Here's a comment. Mistakes are being made all over the world. That mistake about not keeping a pure heart, a pure body, which we can give to God, we can give to each other. And that it is not wrong that a young man and a young woman love each other, but today that part of beautiful purity has been more or less neglected and mistakes are made. So she didn't miss that focus as well.
No, she, I mean, she had that, I say traditional view of purity, and the husband and wife are keeping themselves pure for their marriage day. And so that was her ideal. And that's one example, and there's other examples. She always knew the ideal. She presented the ideal, and it was very demanding. And at the same time, she was very understanding with failure and with sin. And there's examples of people coming, and she would say, Jesus forgives you, Mother forgives you, don't worry about Jesus forgives and forgets, Mother forgives and forgets. So,
but don't do it again.
No, she wouldn't even say necessarily that. No, there's a couple, I think it's in here.
Because there was one about abortion I remember she was reading about. She kind of talked about that.
Like on a personal level, that was one of the stories of the sister. And she said, Mother didn't tell me, why did you do that? How can you do that? She didn't even say, don't do it again. Really? Because I think that just the way it was done, understood, and if you were so loved in that, when you're feeling shame or guilt, and then you get this level, I mean, a pretty hard heart to do it again.
Well, I know there was a story in there in the book where I think a woman came and she didn't have any clothes, and Mother wouldn't send her away. She wanted to give her sorry, but they were out of sorries. But then somebody showed up with a bunch of new sorries.
Stories of that. Just
I'm
at
sure,
that
right,
exact moment, something showing up.
Right.
Mother really had a real faith in providence.
Yeah. Now, how long did it take you actually to edit and put the book together?
Well, actually, this was done in just a few months, because we
had all the material and wanted to get it before the canonization.
Exactly.
Now, what is the copyright is held by the Mother Teresa Center.
Okay.
Exclusive licensee throughout the world. What is that?
Okay. After the beatification, the Missionary of Charity family had a choice. We leave Mother to the wind, or we take responsibility and say, no, this is our Mother, we're responsible to the Church. And so we took that option. And so after the beatification, we began the work. It's a project or work of the postulation, Mother Teresa Center, also over this time after the canonization, to continue the custody of the words especially, and so the Missionaries of Charity, the sisters who own the copyright, let's say, so gave it to the Mother Teresa Center to be the custodians.
Why do you think that's important? Someone might say that, well, Mother Teresa offered herself free to everybody, and why can't everybody why is it important that there be some control?
The key word for the Mother Teresa Center is authentic. So our idea is that we're not interested in, legally we can't give it away for free, but that's not the aim. Our aim is authentic. So when you see it's Mother Teresa Center, then you know, that's for sure, that's Mother Teresa.
Someone's not using Mother Teresa or saying things she didn't actually say, or try to use it for something.
Our key word, authentic.
Okay. Well, you'll be there for the canonization, right?
I certainly will be.
Okay. Well, thank you so much,
You're
Father
most
Brian.
welcome.
It's great to have you here, stopping by at the Knights of Columbus Convention to spend a few minutes with us, talking about A Call to Mercy, Hearts to Love, Hands to Serve, all about Mother Teresa. If you love Mother Teresa, and who doesn't, this is a book to check out. Published by Image, available through the EWTN Religious Catalog, EWTNRC.com. You've got to get this book just in time for the canonization. Thank you so much for this on-location bookmark from Toronto. Thanks for joining us.